Remember my karaoke singing UN censor Nick Nuttall? Well, he's back and he's saying crazy things about farming. He's the UN spokesperson who wouldn't accredit the rebel to attend the UN COP22 climate change conference in Marrakesh, Morocco this year. Because as he says, we just aren't helpful to his cause, and because we're advocacy journalists, whatever that means. Now, he's just mad not because we're advocates, everybody advocates for something, but because we don't advocate for the UN. He wants us to be stenographers and literal cheerleaders for his cause and not journalists. But I've been watching various Nick Nuttall videos on YouTube because I wanted to know exactly who my UN-appointed censor is, and I came across one video that was especially crazy, and it was about farming because you just knew that my personal United Nations censor would have a lot of crazy things to say about farming. The universe works mysteriously that way. Just watch this one clip I found where Nick Nuttall is actually advocating that people, farmers, in developing countries grow more expensive organic crops without the use of fossil fuels. Here.
The report, also the Green Economy report, showcases a lot of examples where we know the green economy is happening. We know organic agriculture is growing on this planet. You go to Uganda, you see the hundreds of thousands of farmers now involved in organic agriculture. Maybe not for the environmental benefits, but for the sheer fact that they're getting 3 times the price for their pineapples on the world market than they were before. So for them, it's actually really livelihoods that's selling a different kind of agricultural model. Okay, big ticket items on the table at Rio. The final phase out and phase down of fossil fuel subsidies. We know that fossil fuels are linked to fertilizer production, pesticide production. I saw a report this morning in my email box by some of our staff back at UNEP that in the United States alone, food and oil, the amount of oil used in the American economy for food, transportation, fertilizers, the whole system is perhaps 19% of the oil used in the USA. Now, and the USA, by the way, subsidized its oil industry heavily. By some estimates, just a year or so ago, the US Treasury got 0 cents back from the fossil fuel industry because they paid so much out in exploration subsidies. In other parts of the world, they're consumer subsidies. So this might help the debate in shifting the balance towards more sustainable agriculture, organic agriculture, away from intensive agriculture. Other subsidies, pesticides, fertilizers, those are being looked at as well at Rio Plus 20, not as intensively as the fossil fuel subsidies.
We have this rich, white, jet-setting liberal, Nick Nuttall, telling third-world farmers to grow more expensive organic pineapples so that only rich, first-world fancy people like him can afford to buy them. And aren't these people supposed to care about the carbon footprint of stuff? Shipping expensive pineapples halfway across the world so that the Nick Nuttall types can be the only people who can buy them sort of seems counterintuitive to that idea to me. Nick Nuttall is against GMOs and fossil fuel-based pesticides and herbicides. He actually wants us to turn our backs on modern farming. Nick Nuttall is, in effect, railing against modern farmers having higher yields of more resilient crops, making farmers better able to feed more people around the world. It makes me wonder, why does Nick Nuttall hate all those starving people? In this new green economy of Nick Nuttall's dreams, farming is lower yield and more physically intensive and requires far more land and water for food production. Because that's what turning back time on farming really means. This all makes food grown in the third world just more expensive for the people who are starving there. And if that's what Nick Nuttall wants, no thanks. Modern agricultural practices have meant that the average farmer in Canada within the last 100 years has gone from feeding 5 people to feeding over 120. In the United States, that number is even higher at 155. That's thanks in no small part to fossil fuels and crop science. According to Nick Nuttall's plans for agriculture, for about every 1 farming family of 5 out there, another 150 people go hungry. In fact, if Canadian farmers stopped using pesticides and GMOs altogether, we'd need another whole province of Saskatchewan, about 37 million more acres to produce the same amount of food as we do today. And Nick Nuttall, well, he can pry my tractor from my cold, dead hands. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunreid. If you don't want someone as unserious as my UN censor Nick Nuttall deciding if I'm a journalist, go to letusreport.com and sign our petition.